Welcome to Be a Light with Mushan podcast. I'm your host, Mushan Payeski. Over the years, through many platforms, organizations, I have met many inspirational individuals who have touched me personally. Their stories, their journeys can be an inspiration to many of you. Today, I have the privilege to invite someone I admire a lot because she is also from China, and her journey is so inspiring and encouraging that I feel my dream is bigger after I met her. So with the great privilege, I'm introducing to you Dottie Li. Hi, Dottie, welcome.
Hello, Mushang. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being a light on this podcast to share your inspiring and unique journey as an immigrant and also as someone who is so successful in the world that we are very scared of, like public speaking and the communication with the second language. When I met with you, that was when I was trying to improve my language skills. I found that you were not just an expert in language, you are an expert in so many areas. So would you mind to share about your background, what brought you from China to America, and your journey with us?
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm delighted. I'm honored to be sharing this program with your audience, and especially this topic is so endearing. Be a light, right? If we don't have lights in this world, we'll be in complete darkness. And be a light, it means so much to me, and it means so many different things. So let me just say, the fact that I'm doing what I've been doing is because of a passion that I have. And I think you share that. I want to help people. I want to help people to improve their communication so that they can advance their career, so that they could be more confident in what they do, not just at work, but also in their personal lives and impacting the community at large. So, with that said, I started out, born and raised in China, like you and many others. When I was a kid at 9 years old, I had a dream of becoming a broadcaster at Voice of America here in Washington, D.C. And of course, I was thousands of miles away in China, and I didn't speak a word of English at that time because I was listening to the broadcast of Voice of America in Mandarin, of course. And so that childhood dream was planted. So I wanted to pursue that dream. But number one, I need to learn English. Number two, I need to be here physically in America in order to realize that dream. So fast forward many years later, after college, I followed my father's footsteps in becoming a journalist. And shortly after that, I had the great fortune and blessing to be coming to America to a small liberal arts university in Mobile, Alabama. And that was when I shared my childhood's dream of becoming a VOA broadcaster with my communications professor, Dr. Billy Wolf. And he told me basically the man who founded VOA lived in Mobile. So, I guess my chance of getting into a university in the US, a small one, was really fortunate because that was by design. That somehow the universe decided I needed to be there instead of some other places. And I got to meet Mr. Giddens, the man who founded VOA, Mr. Kenneth Giddens, and his wife, Mrs. Zelma Giddens, and I hit it off. She was in her 80s. I was in my early 20s. We hit it off. And basically, she said, Dottie, you need to go to Washington, D.C. after you finish. And she bought me a ticket I was a poor international student. She bought me a ticket to come to DC. And I was just, again, so blessed. I got to come to DC, enrolled in this national journalism internship program. And as part of the program, we needed to go to a media outlet. And of course, I chose VOA to do my internship program. Once I finished that program, VOA decided I was a good broadcaster. They offered me a job. So imagine that. My very first job in America was to realize my childhood dream. And of course, yeah, it was pretty amazing. I still think it's a pretty amazing journey.
I gotta say, you are pretty fortunate. Yes. And also made such great mentors who took the extra mile to support you for your dream. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have been extremely lucky, and I got to meet people who not only were supportive and they continue to be supportive, but also who are resourceful, who again connect me to different people and different circle. And that's another thing I've learned throughout my career is the power of networking. And
Yeah.
actually, I teach a training on that. Just taught a training on that last month at Boeing, the month of May, Asian American Heritage Month. I get to do another training at Boeing on effective communication for non-native English speakers. You know, that's a very in-demand training topic.
Yes, I can see the great value in that. Also, that's your passion is the cross-cultural communication. What part of your journey actually inspired you to take this as your path forward?
Yeah, such a great question, Mushan. Those of us, you and I included, who came from a different country, a different culture, and once we were here, we felt, a lot of challenges, of course, cultural shocks and all that. And I went through that journey. And so I needed to help others so that their acculturation, that is the term, their acculturation process would be shorter, faster, smoother, and quicker. And so what I'm learning, what I have learned, what I have acquired is helping others to make that journey much better. And that's my giving back to the community, to the people who need this support, not just immigrants. Acculturation is a universal concept, whether you are someone who's born and raised here in this country, and you are a civilian, and somehow, I guess we're all born civilian, and somehow you get engaged with the military. So you go from being a civilian to being in the military, in service. Then you go through this transition. You go through this period. It's called acculturation. Vice versa. Once you finish your service, you come back to be a civilian. That process is also an acculturation process. And say if you're from a small town, Mobile, Alabama, then you ended up in the capital city of Washington, D.C., that transition alone, that is also acculturation. So acculturation applies to many people, to many process. And, immigrants, what we have gone through is just part of that. And it is my passion to help people bridge that cross-cultural gap. My mission is all about breaking down barriers, linguistically, culturally, politically, and otherwise. That's where and when I started cross-cultural communication, and that's how Trans-Pacific Communications was born. And I started that with that single goal to break down barriers. And I would say the passion today is stronger than ever than when I first started.
Acculturation.
Yes.
I have never learned about it.
Yes,
Thank
yes.
you so much. Is that a very commonly used word?
I don't think people use that word
Yeah.
often. When I first started, I go around to make speeches, keynotes, and training, and so
Uh-huh.
on and so forth. I had to introduce that concept to people, acculturation. Acculturation has a 4-step process. I taught people, step 1, 2, 3, and 4. I asked people where they are in that acculturation process. Immigrants oftentimes could apply to that 4-step process easily. And non-immigrants, sometimes they have a hard time figuring out where they are. But regardless of where you are in that 4-step process, the training that we designed at Trans-Pacific Communications is designed for that very purpose, is to make sure you go through that process quicker, faster, smoother, and better. Unlike, someone like me and many people who first started coming here, and we went through a painful process, right?
Mhm.
We didn't know the rules. We did not have a manual, what to do, what not to do, what to
Mhm.
say, but more importantly, what not to say.
Yeah.
So our training is essentially giving people some kind of a roadmap in guiding people, but more importantly, giving people the tools to succeed.
That's amazing. Would you mind sharing those 4 steps briefly? I don't expect you to give a whole lecture. I'm sure that's a big, very valuable service to many organizations or people. But it would be great if you don't mind sharing those 4 steps.
I don't mind at all, Mushang.
I'm having a notebook.
Sure, go ahead. The first step is called euphoria, as in excitement, euphoria. You're so excited coming to a new country, coming to a new organization, even
Mhm.
if you're just transferring from one federal agency to another or from one company to another, right? That's the
Yeah.
honeymoon period, just like when I first started coming here. But then that excitement wears off quickly after you get here for a while, get to a new organization for a while, and you get to the second stage, which is called profound differences, also known as culture shock,
Yeah.
right? We all have been there, no matter what. Cultural shock manifests itself in many different things, in being homesick, as in you miss your old home country or old ways of doing things, and you miss your mama, you miss your old colleagues, and so on and so forth. So this is a stage that's pretty painful because you don't have the manual, like what to do, what not to do, that sort of thing. So you're offending people pretty much from left to right. I've done that. Trust me, we all have done it. We have all committed all sorts of faux pas. But you move on to the third stage. Well, third stage is actually worse than the second stage. It's called limbo. Well, it was bad enough in stage 2, but now limbo is you just feel like you're stuck. That's what being limbo is all about. You can't go forward, you can't go backwards. Now, for example, like me, I couldn't afford to pack up my suitcases, 2 of those, when I first came to go home to China. I would lose face. You know that. That's the most important thing. So
Yeah.
you had to figure out a way to move on. You need to adapt. You need to learn the new rules of, being part of this new country. You need to learn how to use knives and forks instead of chopsticks, right?
Mhm.
All those things that you didn't know. And eventually, hopefully, you move on to stage 4, which is the final stage that is called being accepted. Not just being accepted, but you are also accepting the new culture, the new place, knives and forks, piece of cake. It's like you've always used them, right? You adapt the new ways of doing things, or even new ways of thinking, new ways of speaking, new ways of, conducting yourself, and so on and so forth. So that completes that cycle of acculturation. It's a 4 steps process. Some people are still stuck in, I want to say, in stage 3 because they have never completed that process. They've never reached the final stage of being accepted or even embracing the new culture. And so some of the people who have gone through our training have benefited tremendously going through that acculturation process quickly, fast, and smoothly.
Thank you so much for sharing your methods and that took your personal journey to realize to value this process step by step. Thank you. You mentioned about some challenges you also faced, like many of us, like many of the immigrants. What was the biggest challenge you faced?
Well, there are quite a few, but I would say the number one challenge, again, was the language itself. Of course, language and culture go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
And I am someone who has made a living using English, right? I was in journalism. After VOA, I went to be a network television producer at C-SPAN for a number of years. At the time, my goal was to be on the other side of the fence of the media, to be doing media relations and public relations. I needed to get my hands dirty to have the actual experience of doing media relations before I could go to a big agency. So after C-SPAN, I went to a big corporation. It's a healthcare delivery corporation here in the DC area, the biggest one. I was a spokesperson there. And so I was doing daily media relations work, working with my former colleagues in the media. And that was the time where I realized the English language was still a much challenge to me because I had a Chinese accent that was mixed with a Southern drawl I picked up from Mobile, Alabama. And as a spokesperson of the corporation, I needed to do better. I felt that was my liability. So that was the biggest challenge. Even though my English was, I would say, good enough, my supervisor said, certainly your English is good enough. You were a network television producer, right? But I felt that combination of those Southern and Chinese just didn't fit with the job description. I went to pursue a training in neutralizing and modifying my accent to sound more authoritatively, to represent my organization better, to be a better spokesperson, right? And by doing so, I realized the tremendous value and that I gained from doing that. So that was a turning point in my life and career. I decided this is something I need to do. This is something I needed to do right away. So I immediately enrolled in a program so that I was certified to train others like myself, other immigrants, to be a better communicator by removing accent, by neutralizing their pronunciation, and of course, by getting the grammatical structure in place and syntax and vocabulary and everything else. It's not just accent. It's not just intonation or pronunciation. It's beyond that. It's the entire package of being effective. So that was my mission. And that's what I did. That was my calling. It still is till this day. Yeah. And I remember getting this message in my head, and I'm convinced that came from above, right? If it's not me, who? If it's not now, when? So I jumped on that. I got certified right away. I was in 100%. And once that was done, and basically that was my entrepreneur spirit or entrepreneur seed that was planted. Just a few short months later, that's when Trans-Pacific Communications was born. But I had to put that on hold for a while because I got some other knocking on my door. That was the White House. the White House came knocking. And well, when the president calls, you got to respond. You got to serve your country. So I jumped to serve my new country, the United States of America, to work for the president and the First Lady Clinton, and traveled around the world and, of course, in the country to handle media events assignments. And that was perhaps the best job, to get to do so many exciting things, to get on trips, many exciting trips to foreign countries, and to represent this best country, right? And to use my media skills and to use my cross-cultural communication skills to work with other countries and of course, my teammates. So that was such a thrill. I continue this till this day to teach young people, whether it's people from my own organization or people in the community or others, to teach young people the skills I've learned from those days. And those skills are still critical and relevant. And I get to coach others.
Wow. So that's all from a few months of that program training for pronunciation.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. I think that is the best decision I ever made for myself and for my career. And look what happened after that.
I know, that's so impressive. So when you were, because not many people would have the opportunities and privilege like you had to work for the former presidents, for the top leaders in the whole world, actually. After that, how do you feel about it? The reason is that I still found you are pretty grounded.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind words. I don't see myself as someone who would think just because I've worked for the White House, worked for the president, so that I had something extra that I needed to look down upon people. No, I never have such thought. And as your program indicates, be a light, right? Be a light to people around you. Be a light to your communities. Be a light to the people around you. And that's my mission, and that I need to live that mission. I don't just say that's my mission. You got to walk the walk. You got to walk the talk as well as putting all those things on paper, on your website, in your social media, what have you. You got to live who you really are. You know, you gotta honor that brand. If you say I'm so and so, but that your brand, what you show up is not anything like what you say you are, then your brand doesn't stand, right? I also teach a branding training called Cultivating an Effective Personal Branding, which is also another very in-demand training. I think I'm going to do that again for Boeing later this year and other organizations, not just Boeing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that you truly lead by example, showing the power of authenticity as well as kindness, willing to shine your light on others to make an easier way for others to exceed. Thank you for being a light.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You've set a great example for being a light, and I've seen you showing up in the community and how you have this passion to help others as well. So it totally resonates with me. So thank you, Musha.
What's one common mistake you see people make when trying to connect across cultures?
Well, that's a good question. If it's about immigrants, I could talk more on that. And if it's about people who are born and raised here, that's a different game. So I'm assuming you want to know about immigrants. Which one?
Maybe both. I believe communication is good for everyone. How about talk about in general communication, then talk about communication cross cultures?
Mm-hmm. Well, in general, I think the most important principle in communication is to make sure you put yourself in the other person's situation. So you got to tell them what this whole situation is all about. You got to paint a broader picture. You can't just go straight into details, right? You have to tell them what you are going to tell them first. I know I've taught many people the golden rule.
Yeah.
If any of you are listening who have taken Trans-Pacific communication training, you know what the golden rule is. The golden rule is tell them what you are going to tell them, then tell them what you've just told them. Many people use that as the tell them rule, but I coined this golden rule because it works every time and all the time. That's why it makes it golden. So it's the golden rule. And I think that's the key. If people don't give you a sense of what they're about to tell you, then they go straight into the details. You're already lost. What are you talking about, right? Are you telling me how to build a spaceship? Or are you giving me a recipe without telling me what the recipe is? Get some beef, get a pound of beef, get some salt and pepper and some veggies. What is that? You got to tell me. I'm going to give you a recipe of beef broccoli. Then you know the details of gathering ingredients and so on and so forth. I think it's the simple principle, yet many people don't follow. Oftentimes, I get a sense that some people don't answer questions directly, not because they're politicians. They refuse to answer questions, right? That's a complete different story. And I use an example. Sometimes if one asks for the time, like what time is it? Instead of giving people the answer of the time, it's 3:40, that's 8:30, they tell you a story of how the clock is being made. Truly, I've seen that over and over again, and not an exaggeration. So I think those are some principles. Cross-culturally, you again have to put yourself in the other situation, understanding where that person's background might be, that what that person's cultural upbringing might be, so you could communicate in their perspective instead of talking about things they have no clue. And that goes the same thing with immigrants, right? Immigrants, many of us have this challenge of mastering the English language. I know it's a hard language. We've gone through that process and we're still learning. But many of us don't really know certain expressions, and they will either make things up or they will kind of change things. And then listeners who don't understand what the changed items are, they are lost, they're confused, and eventually they get turned off and they're not going to listen anymore. They're just completely turned off, and they tune us off too. I think there is a very recent example, an individual that who was going to write a speech about something. And in the speech, this individual decided to say, breathe yourself. Breathe yourself. I'm thinking, what is breathe yourself? And so this person mistakenly using that phrase, something about embrace yourself, or something like that. And instead of breathe yourself, what do you mean breathe yourself? We're all breathing, hopefully, right? So when things get switched and changed, when we really don't know what the phrase might be, what the correct idioms might be, so things could get totally messed up.
Clarity is everything. I agree. From the communication expert perspective, what are the top 3 essential skills for being an effective communicator?
Thank you for asking. Top 3, as I said earlier, the number 1 is to put yourself to communicate from your audience's perspective. Put yourself in their spot so that you could communicate from that perspective. And I think that's key, number one, so that you could reach people. And then the second thing is that you got to give people an overall picture first. Give them an overall picture before you get into the details, go into the weeds about different things. And then the third thing, the top three, the third top principle is that you need to be able to basically be personable, right?
Mm.
Some people could only talk with, top level people, maybe the president of the company, maybe senior vice president, and maybe some folks at this level. But do you have the ability to reach people who are not at that level? Can you communicate with people who come to clean your offices? Can you talk to the folks who take out your trash? So that is a way of communicating with people.
Mm.
Can you reach people, right? I remember one immigrant, a parent who was taking her kid to a school because she was a recent immigrant. She said the school janitor was so happy in the morning and greeted her with this joy that she never experienced. She said, "What is he so happy about?" I said, "Why not?" And she actually said, "He's a janitor." It's like, for her, this position is probably pretty low in the ranking, in the social ranking. She said, "Well, why would he talk to me?" I said, "Why not? You're a human being, and he's a human being. He's making a living to take care of his family. He's full of joy. He wanted to pass that joy to you. He said good morning to you with all his heart, with all the joy he could bring to you and others." She was taken aback. She could not believe, why would he be so happy? Yeah. And I had to let her know, he should be as happy as you could be, but clearly you're not as happy as him, right? So that's communication. She could not communicate with him because of her baggage in her head. Yeah. So that's a key principle when it comes to communication. I hope that helps.
Yeah. I love those tips. Since you're the language expert, do you see pronunciation more important than grammatical knowledge? If we have to compare, which one is more important in communication? Pronunciation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Great question, Musha. I don't know if I could put those two on a different scale. Say if you have the perfect pronunciation, like an evening broadcaster, yet your grammar is all wrong. It doesn't matter how beautifully you speak, everything comes out is wrong in terms of grammatical structure. So, of course, grammar is imperative, right? Yeah. However, if you have the best grammatical structure, you got that thing nailed down, but every other word is mispronounced, and that you're going to build a wall between you and your listeners, your audience, because people don't understand, or at least your message could be diluted, could be totally lost, if not lost at all, because of your mispronunciation and accent that people don't understand, intonation, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, definitely. I know both of them are so important.
Yes.
The other things can come along, like vocabulary or other things, but pronunciation and grammar are just so important. And yes.
Recently, there was an individual who was in my group. I was volunteering at a Toastmasters meeting. There was an individual who's an English-speaking individual, an older person, who decided that the immigrants, when we speak with a heavy accent or incorrect grammatical structure, that was not a big deal. I totally disagree, because what he claimed that, oh, we understand you good enough. That's not good enough at all. Understanding someone is not the same as speaking the correct English. For example, if you're a tourist, you come to Washington, D.C., you go on the mall, you will see many vendors selling T-shirts and hats, right? You're going to buy something as a souvenir. And many of these vendors are immigrants. They're going to tell you, Mushan, it's $5.50. Do you understand them? Yes. Is that good enough? Not in the workplace, but it's good enough because you could do business with them. You could give them $5.50, not $5.50, right? And clearly this older gentleman who doesn't really understand what the most important thing is when it comes to communication at work, not the street vendors selling T-shirts and hats and what have you. It's not just good enough to be understood, but you need to have the correct structure in the workplace as a professional. And I hope you agree.
I agree. Professionally, definitely we strive for the excellence. That's why all of us keep learning. From that situation, maybe that gentleman was just trying to be kind and to be forgiving. Do you think that would play a part?
I'm not sure what the intention was, but he simply brushed off hearing some of the critiquing, not criticism, but critiquing.
Yeah.
And I don't think he understood. I thought he just simply brushed it off, saying, "Oh, don't worry, take it easy. No, no issues." Yes, there are lots of issues, actually. Yes. Those issues are stopping people from advancing. Those are issues stop people from being confident, and it's a vicious cycle. But because he's not a non-native English speaker, he has no idea how we as non-native English speakers go through and the challenges we go through. Of course, he didn't put himself in our shoe, in our position. How could he?
Yeah, it's hard for people who have never experienced learning a second language to understand the struggles of the people who speak the language as a second language. That's true. That's true. However, I'm still grateful for the people who are forgiving or encouraging. At the same time, we value mentors and leaders or experts and teachers like you to inspire us to do better. Because to be honest, before meeting you, I thought having an accent, speaking broken English was just my destiny. I couldn't change it. Until I met you, I thought, oh, Dottie could do it. I could do it too. Although I came here much later than you, and however, there's a possibility. Maybe it took you several months. Maybe it will take me several years, but it's the possibility. So that's why I really thank you for being out there, being a light, like shining towards me. And that's how I found hope and found the possibility that really encourages me to continue working on my language skills and as well as communication skills. And to be able to meet with you today to chat like this is truly a dream. Even back maybe 3 or 4 years ago. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Mushan, for being a light. That your light shines through and you're helping people around you. You're helping the community. So I admire that so much, and my hat's off to you, Mushan.
Thank you so much, Dottie. There are many professionals, immigrants come to this country. What they can do to build the confidence in a new culture?
I would say get yourself involved, engaged with the communities. Whatever that might be, and immerse yourself in a new culture. but that's not good enough. I mean, that's a good first step.
Mm-hmm.
I would highly, highly encourage them to be enrolled in a program
Mm-hmm.
like what Trans-Pacific Communications has. Our program is designed for that very purpose, for people to go through this acculturation process, to adapt and to have the skills, to have the tools to move forward. And so, but if you don't have the time or the resources or the commitment or
Mm-hmm.
the money for that matter, then you could work on yourself, but that would take much, much longer. I was having a conversation with a parent today, and this parent said he took his son to a golf lesson and he realized how valuable that is. You could figure out on your own. You may be doing the wrong strokes. You may be hitting the ball in the wrong way, but then that would take a lot more lessons, a lot more work to undo the bad habits. So he said, "Oh, it's so valuable, even though it's expensive, but it's worth it to get it right to start with." So I would encourage people not to try to work on your own. It's not bad to work on your own, but how would you know that you've not done it right? How would you know if you said it wrong? Well, if you said it wrong, you would have corrected a long time ago. That is something that people can't really correct themselves, right? If I have an ailment, I have a shoulder that I'm doing PT, physical therapy for. But if I know how to do it, I would have done it myself. No, I don't know how to do it. I have to go to a professional to treat my shoulder or any other things that need professional support, right? I'll give you a quick example. Many years ago, I was a volunteer coach at a Toastmasters club, and you're very familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
And a silver-haired individual, a silver-haired man, was coming to listen to my presentation. And, he was much older, but a top scientist at DOD, Department of Defense, a rocket scientist, actually. And his skills are hard, solid skills that made him an expert. However, this is what he told me. He said, "Oh my goodness, your program is exactly what I need. I've regret for many, many years." He's a much older immigrant, that this is the thing that stopped me in my career from advancing. He said, I would have been in a much better spot, a much higher position, but my communication skills have truly dragged me down. I need this training. And I said, "Sure, I'm happy to help you no matter how old you are or how young you might be." And I told him all about the program. And of course, it's work. I can't do this overnight with anyone. It's work, it's training, right? You've had the habits for what? At least 50 years, in his case, at least 50 years, maybe longer. He needed to go through the training. After listening to me, he said, "Well, I don't think at my age I wanted to be sitting down as a student in a classroom setting anymore." I said, "Well, how would you improve?" And he said, "I'm just going to improve on my own. I'm going to work on it. I'm going to work on my own slowly." And I actually said to him, I said, "What is the result of you working on your own slowly for the past 40 years?" He was speechless.
Mm-hmm.
So certain things you can't
Sure.
work on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Like what the parent said, he spent the money for his kid to go through to take this golf lesson, right? And it was so valuable, so precious. But he did the right thing by getting a professional to give his son the skills he needed to perfect his golf game.
Yeah, I agree. Communication skills are so important, so crucial, especially in advancing our career or professional development. For our audience, if you want to improve your language skills and communication skills, I highly recommend that you reach out to Dottie. I will leave Dottie's information. Is there like a one moment from your journey that always reminds you reminds you of your value, reminds you of your dream. So keep you going.
Such a great question. There are moments just like that keep me going, and it just gives me enormous pleasure seeing people who come through the program, to see them transform their careers. It just incredibly satisfying. I remember this one particular client who is a PhD scientist at a federal agency. And I watched her transform as we were doing the training, not even after the training. We watched her transform in the middle of the training. And then this person said, I wanted to go for a promotion. I said, good, I support you, of course. And this person said, no, I don't just go for a promotion. I'm going for the job above my boss. I said, wow, that's interesting. Because in the federal government, the steps and the ranks and pretty strict.
Mm-hmm.
I asked her how she would like to go by doing that. She said, well, I don't know how to do interviews. Well, because it was a customized training, I said, well, let's pause this training to give you the tools you need to interview. Fortunately, it was an internal interview, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I coached her how to interview, but also how to network, how to build a network. She knew who the panelists were, the interview panel. So she was able to build some kind of relationship with them, not just because, oh, hey, I know you're going to interview me next week. Let's be buddies. It's not that at all. That's why it's power networking across cultures. That's why that training is so popular. So immediately we paused that current training to give her additional skills, interview skills, what to say, but perhaps more importantly, what not to say. And of course, networking skills to make sure that she connected with the panelists. So she went through the first round and second round, the final round. So she went through all that with flying colors. And she got the job because of the training she received. Now, the moral of the lesson is not just because she got the training that supported her advancement, but her boss, can you imagine her boss? Now, the boss became her subordinate, my client's subordinate, right? So as a boss, you better be nice to your employees, because you never know, one day one of them will become your boss, your supervisor. And that was an incredible story. But there's so many moments like those. You just watch them blossom. You watch them transform because of the work because you get to empower people who are already great people. They just needed some lift. They needed some support.
Yeah. Wow, that's a beautiful story. Definitely being able to witness the people thriving because of your support, because of your service is truly satisfying, very rewarding. Indeed. Yeah. And that reminds me of a story, or not a story, the experience I had from my previous job. And one senior designer later on become the subordinate to the junior designer later on, who was promoted to be a supervisor. So yeah, it happened. And I was the enabler for that transition. So it was very satisfying. And I still remember how big the impact, how we lead the team, how we nurture and encouraging the people, empower people to be the best version of themselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
You're pretty active. You run 5K regularly. And I wonder how you manage your time and with all the engagements and training, and also this active lifestyle.
Thank you for asking. I decided a long time ago that I needed to stay fit. I needed to exercise. And so I'm staying fit. I have this hashtag I made up many years ago, hashtag fit, healthy, and strong in many different ways, not just fit physically, but fit in terms of your mental fitness, your emotional fitness, healthy the same way, not just physical, healthy, eating healthy, good nutrition and all that, good protein, etc. But it's spiritually, emotionally, financially, and otherwise, and strong. Strong, I could be, trying to build up my muscles, right? But if I'm not strong emotionally, if I'm not strong spiritually, if I'm not strong financially, I can't support people. I can't support my family. I can't support the communities, right? There are so many things that need our support. So it's an overall approach. And then on top of that, if I'm sick, I'm not doing anybody any good. I'm not even doing myself any good if I'm sick. So I try to stay healthy by working out. I love running. I love running on different continents. Many times I travel to other countries. I make sure I run in that specific city, whether it's a foreign city or if I travel domestically, which is very often. I was just in Florida for 9 days. I had such a grueling schedule, but I made sure I ran, and I did. I also worked out in the hotel gym. Sometimes the scenery is just spectacular, and I'm lucky enough to be traveling to different cities. Oftentimes, the city will have some kind of waterfront or a river, and I always manage to find where the water is. I guess because I'm a Pisces, I just love getting close to water, whether it's the ocean, whether it's the stream, whether it's a river or pond or lake or some sort. But I love running, and I want to stay strong for myself, for the people I need to serve. And of course, it just keeps the energy up. If I don't have enough energy, I won't be able to coach, to train, to speak, to do all the other things I need to do. And I squeeze time to make sure this is self-care, this is self-love, right? And this morning, my goodness, after the trip, I need to get myself back on schedule, as in my running workout schedule. So this morning, my run started at 6 a.m., which meant I had to get up a little bit after 5. And I was off schedule a bit because I forgot my water bottle, after you've been gone so long. So I didn't like that. And hey, things happen. I forgot my water bottle. I also forgot my protein drink. It's like, okay, I got to do better next time, just because my schedule was off. It didn't help. As you know, I was exhausted yesterday. And that also played a part of forgetting my water bottle. But I had a great workout. I ran with my group. It was a big group. And we also did lots of military style boot camp training. And I loved it. And of course, I did more workout after that. And, after the group training, I did some weights. And because I hadn't done much on the road, it just felt great. I even treated myself to a sauna session, like taking the most amazing hot nap in the middle of early morning. And it was just amazing. And I like staying fit. So does that answer your question?
Oh, yes. Definitely, I saw the importance of exercising from your lifestyle. And so you always started with exercising in the morning, right?
Pretty much.
Yeah. I recently I also developed a good hobby or interest is jogging every morning. 1.5 miles is my minimum goal. So as long as I run that, and then the extra ones are the I
Bonus.
Yeah, the bonus, yes. And
Yay,
yeah,
yay.
so
Congratulations.
so I totally agree with you. Exercising and having this routine to care about our mental health, fitness, emotionally, uh, spiritually, or physically, it's very important. Definitely. Yeah. So I see you also fly a lot, you travel a lot. Do you live with your family?
My parents live in China. I try to see them two times a year at least
Mm-hmm.
as they get older and not in the greatest health. So I fly to China to see them 2, 3 times a year, averaging out. And I'm busy, but I think this is so important. Their time, their time is precious. I need to spend as much time as I can with them in their older age. Then I also have a lot of trips here in America domestically. So I do travel a lot. I have a husband and a son, and I have a great support system. When I fly, like this last trip,
Yeah.
I was gone for 9 days, and I got the great support system here at home, so I didn't have to worry about things falling apart at home. And
Mm.
my husband is extremely supportive of me, and it's just the best partner that I could ask for, so that I could do the work I do.
Yeah. That's the best, right? We
Yeah,
need
of
strong
course.
support to
Yeah,
to cultivate the potential and also to develop our career or reach our dreams. We definitely need all the support that we could get. And the family is definitely is the number one. Then the community, as earlier you mentioned. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much, Dottie, for being so generous, sharing your knowledge, your journey with us. So at the end of our conversation, Dottie, do you have one more message you would like to share?
Oh, thank you for asking. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and thank you for having me. I would like to leave something for your audience and your listeners. We have to do everything with our heart. I think that's my principle. Serve whoever you need to serve with your heart.
Yes.
Don't just dash off. Write a meaningful note to someone, not just a happy birthday. I usually send something that's personal, that's meaningful, beyond just happy birthday, Joe, happy birthday, Mary. I mean, anybody could do that, right? I think you got to do everything with your heart. So that's what I wanted to leave you with.
Thank you so much, Dottie, for such a powerful message. Recently, I also just delivered a speech called Serve with Heart, Grow with Vision. I totally, resonate with your message. Again, thank you so much for being on my podcast. It's such a privilege to have your support here and wish you great success and leading as the shining star like you always have been. And you truly inspire me, inspire many of the immigrants and also the people who share similar backgrounds. Thank you, Dottie.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Mushan, for having me.
To our audience, thank you so much for listening and watching. If you like this episode, please share, like, and subscribe. And if you need any of the training from Dottie, please reach out to Dottie. Thank you so much.